What's up, fight fans? Welcome back to Sportskeeda MMA News. Jorge Masvidal opens up about how he felt after his loss to Colby Covington and identified a problem that has deeply affected his MMA career. Jake Paul continues to push for a boxing fight with Michael Bisping, but Bisping fired back. Daniel Cormier weighs in on just that and offers a replacement opponent for Jake Paul. Chael Sonnen reveals he was told a rumor involving Leon Edwards being offered his fight purse to step aside from his title shot, and Brendan Schaub talks about how Alexander Volkanovski is a straight-up monster. All that and more on today's edition of Sportskeeda MMA News. If you see any of your favorite fighters mentioned, make sure to blast that like button. Let's get started. UFC superstar Jorge Masvidal has finally opened up since the infamous steakhouse sneak attack on Colby Covington. Masvidal sat down with Logan Paul on Impulsive and discussed being irate after his fight with Covington. Here's what Masvidal said.
I was upset, and I just like to be in isolation when I get like that. It's just better for me, Take a couple days to figure it out, and if I have a problem and I can't figure it out, then it's a real problem, I could fail in something, but if I could find a way to fix it, I think I could go back and address that again, and then I could sleep with peace at night,
And that problem is something that has plagued him his entire career: wrestlers. Masvidal was acutely aware of this and has decided to do something about it. Here's what he said.
So I definitely feel the consistent problem I've had throughout my career is my wrestling is not 100% there, It's pretty damn good. It's a lot better than when I first started. I got another at least 2-3 years in the sport. Why not give everything I got into this wrestling, see what comes out of it.
Masvidal noted that he would spend some time at Penn State to train with their highly touted wrestling team. Jorge Masvidal is a veteran of 51 fights, with a 35-16 record, earning his way into title contention with highlight KOs over Darren Till and Ben Askren. He is currently on a 3-fight skid, dropping 2 of those to reigning champ Kamaru Usman. After losing to Colby Covington at UFC 272, he initiated an altercation with Covington at Poppy Steak in Miami Beach, which resulted in his eventual arrest. What's next in the career of Jorge Masvidal? Leave a comment down below. Jake Paul is really selling fans on his potential boxing match with former UFC middleweight champ Michael Bisping. Paul recently spoke with ESPN about his future and the headlines that recently have been soaking up his callouts of Bisping on Twitter. He then said that he has a concern that Bisping isn't a big enough draw or even hard competition. Here's what he said. "I'm keeping one eye on Michael Bisping as well, but just as a joke. It would be an easy fight, but that could be interesting. If I knock out Bisping and then Ashton fights Cody Garbrandt on the undercard, we will make light work of all of them. But I don't think they're actually down, and obviously, I don't know if Bisping has a big enough name to make it lucrative." Paul then again took to Twitter and said this: "All these fighters go silent when it's time to actually fight and sign the dotted line." Michael Bisping has since responded to Paul on his podcast. Here's what he said.
He started off with Ben Askren, who was 37, coming off a hip replacement. Then he went to Tyron Woodley, who's 40, who's a wrestler with the right hand, right? Now he's calling me out. At this rate, and Oscar De La Hoya, at this rate, the next person he boxes is going to be the old guy that Conor McGregor punched in the bar.
In response to Jake Paul doubting that Bisping could get licensed for a boxing match, Bisping's representatives from a Canadian Combative Commission have released a video on Twitter stating that they are more than willing and able to set up a super fight in their venue. The tweet reads, "Your move, Jake Paul." Jake Paul is 5-0 as a pro boxer, knocking out the likes of Ben Askren and Tyron Woodley. Michael Bisping retired from MMA in 2017, but has notable wins over Dan Henderson, Anderson Silva, and Luke Rockhold, the man he took the middleweight belt from on short notice. Do you think Michael Bisping is serious about fighting Jake Paul? Former UFC double champ Daniel Cormier had a few things to say about the Jake Paul and Bisping feud as well. On a recent video on DC's YouTube channel, DC spoke about Jake Paul finally picking on someone his own size, but also acknowledged there's a bit of a cherry pick going on here.
You want to fight Michael Bisping, who's retired for 4 years with all the injuries and the issues that he's had. You want to fight a former champion. You want to fight a guy that is older, so you think that maybe there's no risk. Bisping is finally one that's his size, right? So Jake Paul's actually going to fight or wants to fight someone his size. He called me out. I'm bigger than him. But I don't know if that was ever a real thing. But with Bisping, he's actually his size.
While fight fans would love to see Jake Paul versus Daniel Cormier, especially after their interaction at UFC 261, Cormier offered fans an alternative opponent for Paul.
But it's like, hey, if you want to fight someone that is your size but older, right? You're still a young man in your physical prime. You want an older guy to fight? Hey, there's a former UFC champion that is doing exactly what you're doing. His name's Anderson Silva. That's who you should be fighting, Jake. That's who you should be calling out.
Anderson Silva is currently active in boxing after an historic career in the UFC, which includes 10 middleweight title defenses. Silva most recently knocked out another UFC legend, Tito Ortiz, in a boxing match. Do you think at 47 years old that Anderson Silva could KO Jake Paul? Chael Sonnen recently revealed inside information about one of the UFC's best welterweights. Leon Edwards, who has been reported to fight pound-for-pound king Kamaru Usman this summer, allegedly was made a generous offer to make way for a Conor McGregor return. Here's what Sonnen had to say.
But I am being told that Leon has been offered his show and his win. Whatever was negotiated for Leon to fight Kamaru is being offered that we will mail you a check to step aside. We have the right to push you aside. We don't want any hard feelings. And we acknowledge that you deserve this. So we're going to send you what we've agreed on. You get to stay home. With the belief being that Conor's going to step in.
If this is true, then the UFC will pave the way for McGregor to possibly earn a third belt in 3 different weight classes, something never before accomplished in the UFC, and something Conor has been publicly wanting to do. The 19-3 Leon Edwards most recently defeated Nate Diaz at UFC 263 to make it a 10-fight unbeaten streak. Former double champion Conor McGregor is 2-3 in his last 5 fights, with 2 of those losses coming to Dustin Poirier. He is yet to make a definitive update since his compound fracture injury sustained at UFC 264 in the trilogy fight with Poirier. Do you think the UFC is actively pursuing a McGregor vs. Usman matchup? While you're still here, subscribe to Sportskeeda MMA. And last but not least, former UFC heavyweight Brendan Schaub recently spoke to the reigning featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski. Volkanovski shared some details about his training regimens and revealed that he mostly punches above his weight. Here's what Schaub had to say.
He doesn't train with any other 45ers, definitely not 35ers, sure as not 125ers. His entire camp consists of 55 and up. He only goes with 55ers, 70s, 85ers, and even light heavyweights. He goes, we do wall work, we do wrestling, and he said it's because of my strength and power that I can only get to work with them.
Fans should be reminded that Volkanovski began his MMA career at middleweight, eventually moving down weight classes until settling for 145. Schaub then gave his thoughts about a potential fight with Conor McGregor at lightweight, something Volkanovski has been speaking about lately.
I think he said what makes the most sense for him is Conor at 55. He wants to be the king of 45, and I was like, Conor's never making 45. He's like, I know, so I'll meet him at lightweight if he'll do it. So I'll meet him at 55, which is a great fight. For Conor, that's a no-brainer. You're fighting the champ at 45, at 55. You know, Conor's a problem at 55. I know he hasn't got a ton of wins there, but he's a monster.
Well, we all saw how much of a monster Volkanovski is after his brutal TKO victory over the Korean Zombie at UFC 273. He's now beaten 3 out of the top 5 featherweights, including Max Holloway twice and Brian Ortega, and is now riding a ridiculous 19-fight winning streak with an MMA record of 24-1. Should Volkanovski move up and take the super fight with Conor, or should he keep the division moving, perhaps a fight with Calvin Kattar? That about does it for Sportskeeda MMA News. Here are some of the best comments from today. Yep, Jake Paul certainly is trying to clean out the senior division. I like Miocic, but I will be rooting for Jones, because if Jones wins, Ngannou will be next. I really love to see Jones versus Ngannou in the octagon. Sean's last fight was pretty much a loss. Boring. If Pereira gets a highlight reel knockout on Strickland, I think he should fight Izzy. If you liked this video, please like, comment, and share. Your comments could be featured in the next Sportskeeda MMA News video. For updates, quotes, and exclusive interviews from all your favorite fighters, follow Sportskeeda MMA on Twitter and Instagram. Thanks for tuning in.